Welcome to Here You Go. Here You Go is a project I started in order to present media that has been created or enhanced with AI. The project is primarily for my own entertainment and experimentation, but feel free to like and subscribe if you enjoy it too. And now for the presentation.
Fat, knotted stalagmites suggested tree trunks, and the darkness overhead appeared like shadowy densities of foliage. Seepage had fretted the walls into lacy limestone traceries like a fern forest. They went on, with tense silence savage between them. Alarm blinkers flashed light codes of rapid pursuit. Your people must have had much contact with the police to have worked out such a setup, observed Tori. Tharelson nodded. We have been persecuted for centuries. Not many Earth folk have ever been here. Nor any others but my own people. Yet the police seem to be finding their way. Tharelson frowned. That puzzles me, she admitted. How could they come here at all unless someone has betrayed us? From close behind sounded the loud buzzing of a radiation detector. A thin pencil beam flashed at them and splashed wetly over the cavern wall ahead. Rock shattered in a brittle, crunchy explosion. Murderous chips deluged the tunnel. Tori lunged at the girl, dragging her down in a savage fall. More beams of light licked out, this time from several directions. Continuous thunders roared and reverberated, stunning ears and brains with concussion and sound. Roughly, Tori thrust the girl into a wall niche for shelter. The police, wailed Tharel Sr. Looks as if we're trapped. We'd better give ourselves up. She stared at him with contempt. You still have your gun. If you're afraid, give it to me. One gun against a dozen. No thanks. Waiting for a lull in the blast uproar, Tori called out. His voice rang hollowly in the cavern, still shuddering with echoes of the explosions. Hold your fire. We're coming out. Granner's voice answered. Throw out your gun first. Tori complied. His gun rattled on the floor of rock. Pushing Tharelson sullenly before him, Tori stood clear. In a moment, the tunnel was full of uniformed figures. Granner studied Tori with some amusement. You needn't have gone so fast. I got your note, but your trail ran into a dead end at Farax's office. It took time to pick it up again, but we found it beside San Boss' body in his gardens. Clever deal, Tori. Using radioactive dust on your shoes like that. Shall we handcuff Tharelson and take her back? No, answered Tori glumly. She's going to show us the way to Roper. So you betrayed us? Asked Tharelson, contempt making her face ugly. That's a matter of opinion. Granner broke in. Better pick up your gun, Tori. You may need it. How many men shall we take? Tori shrugged. That depends on the number of spacesuits available. How many, Tharelson? 3, she replied bitterly. Do you think 2 of you dare tackle Roper alone? I think so. How about it, Granner? The policeman grunted. The matter transmitter was already set up. Upon its folding framework the screen glittered like woven quicksilver, vibrating to the hum of electromagnetic flow. Will this take us directly to Roper? Asked Granner. Not quite, said Tori, grinning. It's a delicate adjustment. Mars and Neptune both in motion, and Triton's orbit and axial rotation to consider. We'll be somewhere on Triton, but Triton has more land surface than Earth. Can we find? Tori gestured. She'll find him for us. Have your men stand by and switch on the transmitter every 3 hours. Dressed for space, the 3 enter the screen. Chapter 5. Planet X or Neptune's moon, Triton was a vast mirage with many facets. Atmosphere was as dense and still as water in ocean deeps. Sky was cloudless, but not clear, apparently built up of different layers of gases, and the light was both glaring and erratic. At a distance of over 3.5 billion miles from the sun, most of the light was not sunlight, and the little that came through the air ocean was filtered and absorbed into curious colors and intensities. Other illumination sources were auroral displays, radioactive hotspots that glowed like eerie ghosts, and volcanic outbursts of crimson or gold. Surface pressure of the atmospheric ocean was extreme, and the gas densities and weird light gave an uncanny submarine illusion. Venturing onto the surface of Triton, Tori felt like a diver in that long-past period when man's last frontier on Earth had seen the ocean deeps. Gravity, greater than on Mars, but less than Earth's, gave a sense of buoyancy. The spacesuiting was not unlike ancient diving costume, and the thickness of the atmosphere itself suggested deep, still water. Most disturbing of all were the mirages. All the familiar effects of Earth mirages were present but magnified and even multiplied into infinite complexities. To a scientist of optics or meteorology, Triton would be a superb laboratory. To Tori, it was near madness. Mirages by hundreds and thousands floated between surface and zenith, or hugged the ground like captive nightmares. Pinnacled dream mountains rose from bases of empty air. Phantom battlements and mock castles stormed upward from nothing. Magnified rockeries became goblin cities, looming near or far in equal scale. Water glittered in the sky and on the ground, and floating debris became fleets of fairy argosies. Lateral mirages played eerie jokes with distance. All images seemed unreal, and diffraction haloed them with misty, rainbow coloring. Triton itself was bleak, savage, merciless, nearly windless but for vagrant currents of slow-moving dense air, like currents in an ocean. By levels, temperatures were absurdly high or low, depending upon location or freak circumstances. It was a lifeless world, inhospitable to man. But it wore a mask and costume of exotic, lying beauty, and masquerade was hard to distinguish from the harsh reality. Anything definite was hard to distinguish. Granner turned up the microphone in his helmet, and his words rattled from Tori's speaker. "How can we find Roper in such a madhouse as this?" he roared. Tori winced as the amplified outburst thundered in his ears. "Simple enough," he replied. "Fine detective you are. There's a radio compass built into Therelson's suit. Roper's sending all the time. She'll go to him like a homing pigeon." "Pigeon is right," muttered Granner. "Hope it's not too far. A little more of this would make me neurotic." "Can we trust her?" Tori laughed. "Yes and no. She hates us, but she'll lead us to Roper. That transmitter is his only way back to Mars. And hers, too. Isn't that right, Therelson?" Fortunately her reply did not come through clearly. Following the radio compass, which behaved erratically due to magnetic discharges, they moved through the wilderness of the mirages. Progress was deceptive, without reliable landmarks. Rugged terrain made treacherous going. Megalithic cities and monstrous mountains appeared and disappeared like patterns in a kaleidoscope. In the eccentric lighting, vision itself seemed to flicker as treacherously as a 3D projector running out of balance. Constant distortions and fading out produced mental nausea and physical insecurity. Tori was not sure where his next step would take him. One instant he seemed to flounder on the edge of abyss. The next, he would be climbing what seemed an interminable mountain, only to have solid floors of rock shimmer and vanish before his eyes. It was impossible to see where they were going, or even be certain what it was like where they had just been. Only the needle of the radio compass held any steadiness at all, and that jerked into wild whirlings now and then as magnetic currents ebbed and flowed in the ground. They seemed, through rifts in the mirages, to be traversing a monstrous field of jagged boulders, inclined slightly upward. Even these rocks were not always as substantial as they looked, but for the most part, they were real obstacles. The thought crossed Tori's mind that it would be a bad place for an ambush if Roper were so inclined. When the facts materialized his fears, the pencil beam of a blaster cutting through the mirages seemed only part of a dazzling auroral display. The explosion that followed demonstrated its reality. Rock chips and larger fragments rained about them. In the dense medium of atmosphere, the shock wave was terrific, and even his spacesuit did not completely insulate the blow. All three were flung about as if by earthquake. Tori missed his footing and went down in a long sprawl, which saved his life. The second blaster flash would have targeted him dead center. It flickered harmless over him, touched the nearby boulders to sudden glare, then lost itself in fearful detonation. Dodging the hail of debris, Tori crawled quickly to shelter behind a larger boulder. With gauntlet hands, he tested its solidity before he trusted himself to relax. A harsh cry of pain and terror echoed in his ears. Its tones held desperation. And the voice was Granner's. By concentrating, Tori could dimly make out the figure of the detective. Granner lay in a tumbled heap, threshing wildly and trying to hold shut great rents in his space suit. He seemed to be injured, for one leg was motionless while the rest of his body worked in convulsions. Tori left his shelter and bounded toward the casualty. He bundled Granner roughly to his feet and hustled him into the nearest tangle of solid rocks. A hastily aimed blaster beam hurried him at the task. Crouching down, he examined Granner. The policeman was conscious, swearing valiantly. His leg was broken. Inside the space suit it would be impossible to set the fracture. And outside, the toxic gases of Triton would make short work of human breathing. Even the rents in the suiting were dangerous. Working quickly, Tori clipped together the rents and sealed them hermetically with compound from the repair kits. "That's the best I can do," he told the policeman grimly as his eyes searched in vain for a sign of Roper. "You'll have to stand the rest till we can get out of here and back to Mars." "What are our chances of getting out?" "A man does not shrug in a spacesuit." "Not good," said Tori. "Roper can keep us pinned here as long as he likes." "How long do you think that'll be?" Tori grunted. "Till he gets tired of it and decides to stalk us and kill us. Or till I go out and get him." "I see. It's like that, eh? Where's the girl?" "Who knows? She's either hiding out in the rocks, like us, or she's found a way to join Roper." "Does it matter?" "Not to me," mused Granner. "I just hoped maybe she wasn't as rotten as Roper, that she might give us a chance." "Don't count on it," said Tori spitefully. "She might be as pure as an angel, but Roper sold her a bill of goods. Feeling as she does about him, she'd kill either of us as quickly as Roper would." They waited in silence, while mirages came and went around them, as light shifted, or slight currents stirred in the turbid air. If Roper were a mirage salesman, he had certainly made his stand in the wholesale house. Under other circumstances, Tori might have found the displays interesting, even entertaining, but at the moment, his reflections were as poisonous as the air on Triton. Colors flared and faded like a cross-spectrum of inferno. Granner was restless with the pain in his leg. His squirming infected Tori, who leaned out above the barrier of rocks waving his hand violently. As he hoped, he attracted attention. A thin wire of light kissed the rocks of the barrier. Chips pelted like hail, and the force of the blast set up thunderous echoes in his helmet. He must have rigged a scanner of some sort. Such shooting is too good for a man with mirages in his eyes. Would something like infrared help? "I don't know," groaned Granner. "In any case, we haven't the time or the means to work out a scanner. I think I'll try crawling out of here. If I keep low, I might be able to work around and come up behind him. Is it all right with you if I give it a try?" "Why not? Outside of your life, what have you got to lose? I hate to leave you here unless you want it that way. But there's not much future for you, anyhow, if I stay. Do whatever you like. I guess I owe you something, and I like to pay my debts. Any other last wishes?" "Just one. I want him." "Roper? You want to kill him?" Granner sounded baffled. "Kill or cure? I don't understand." "You want him on Mars for murder. He's wanted on Earth for lesser crimes. That gives you priority. You can demand and get extradition for him to Mars, which means quick death in the atomic disintegrators, or slow death in the prison mines. On Earth, they have a clinic for incurables like Roper. It's a free choice for them, euthanasia or voluntary submission to the clinic." Granner hesitated. "I know about that. But isn't such a treatment almost as dangerous as being killed outright, and a lot tougher on the subject?" "It can be," granted Tori flatly. "Sometimes the hypnotic memory blanking or the shock treatment wrecks the brain. And the glandular surgery and hormone dosage can turn a man into a freak and monster. If it works, the criminal is rebuilt mentally and morally, recreated with a new personality, and completely new educational background. He's hardly the same man, and often his old friends can't recognize him physically. Granner's eyes narrowed. In Roper's case, that might be an advantage. Of course I'm familiar with the clinic and its work in rehabilitating incorrigibles. But do you think any treatment could work the miracle with Roper? I don't know and don't care. People like Roper help make life colorful and interesting. But they're too hard on everyone around them. His adolescent stasis carries his own damnation for him. He's miserably unhappy, along with everyone who knows him. He imagines he's smarter and superior to other people, and that it's his duty to prey on them. Mentally, he's a rotten spoiled child. But a dangerous one. Like the one rotten apple, he spreads his rottenness through the whole barrel. I'm familiar with that theory of crime, but I don't go along with it. I'm not convinced you can unspoil a rotten apple, and I doubt if it's worthwhile to try. No matter, said Tori grimly. If they fail on him, they'll destroy him. Either way, it will make a better world for everyone. Probably I hate him more than you do. But I'm willing to give him this last chance if you'll let me. Granner laughed ironically. Have it your way, if you can take him. It's out of my hands, actually. Though, as a cop, I'd be better satisfied if you burned him down here. I'll settle for your clinic. It's a nasty enough choice, anyhow. If you can capture or kill him, go ahead. I'll gladly resign my share of the brute to you. And you'll earn it. Do you really think you can crawl out of here and circle him? Tori glanced sourly at the flickering mirages. I can try, he said slowly. It was a mirage that saved Tori. Going proved even rougher than he had expected. Squirming over unknown terrain is hard, even in conditions of fair visibility. On Triton, with its constantly varying light, and the ever-present confusion of mirages, it was fantastic. The cumbersome spacesuit was no help. Darkness thickened around him, but the mirages grew worse, as he toiled up the slope. Loose stones rattled about him in tiny avalanches, and he went more carefully, lest they betray him to Roper. Sweat bathed him inside his insulated costume, and steam misted the helmet's faceplate before he could get the thermal conditioners functioning properly. A bad foothold earned him a nasty fall, and the rough suiting and acid sweat combined to burn painful blisters on hands and knees. In grim determination approximating madness, he plunged upward and onward. He found an eroded ravine and groped blindly along it, wondering what fearful liquids had gashed such a gully on such a nightmarish world. Alien dusk gathered, and in the hollow of the ravine writhed coils of living light. At intervals, he avoided the hot glaring flares of radioactive hot spots. Tori followed the barren fissure, and strange sounds and fleeting light phantoms followed him. And a river of dense, sluggish air funneled upward through the gully, whispering of ugly, forgotten events upon a forgotten world. In the uneasy sky overhead, electrical discharges wove networks of colored lightnings, which crackled and hissed as static in his earphones. Nearing the upper end of the gully, Tori halted and took stock of his surroundings. He estimated progress, and wondered how he would ever find his quarry. His quest seemed one more mad illusion in the sequence of mirages. He freed his blaster from its magnetic belt clip and examined it for charge. Crawling with the weapon in his hand was awkward, but it would be suicide to be caught reaching for it. Grimly he worked his way to the notch of the ravine and poked out his head. Ironically, it was the mirage that saved him. A lateral mirage, distorting both distance and direction, showed him a sharp image, inverted, of Roper aiming carefully in the opposite direction. Instantly, Tori let go his grasp and dropped. He fell and rolled savagely, while the lance of light stabbed overhead, and the explosion started small landslides around him. He screamed in momentary panic. Preventing a helpless plunge into an abyss which opened before him was a chore. And the abyss itself proved only illusion. Solid wall blocked his fall and stunned him for a terrible moment. Miraculously, he retained a grip on his gun. He lay quietly, while rocks continued to rattle upon his helmet and spacesuit. Someone was descending toward him. It could be only Roper. The visible face behind the plate of transparent plastic could have been poured in the same mold as Tori's. It was younger, finer featured, but it was shrewd, self-indulgent. Roper had enjoyed his life of crime, and it had agreed with him. He looked healthy, humorously handsome, and extremely well-fed. He stared at Tori, and the expression on his face changed as he saw the blaster. He started a movement toward his own clipped weapon. "Don't try it, Bart," ordered Tori sharply. "I think I'd enjoy killing you." Bart Roper sighed deeply. "You took unfair advantage of me," he complained. "I thought you were hurt or killed. I was coming to see to make sure of me, if you'd missed." "Maybe not. Maybe you did have a human impulse for once." "I'll try to think so." "And you can see how much it hurts when someone takes advantage of any human weakness." "It hurts, doesn't it?" Roper nodded slowly. "It does. So you've got me. Don't be so proud of yourself. It wasn't that hard. I was cooked from the moment your police pals got their hands on the transmitter. It was my only way out. You know that, of course. I just wanted the pleasure of taking some of you with me. I'm not going back to Mars. The disintegrators, or life in the prison mines, don't appeal to me. So you'd better kill me now." "I will if you force me," Tori told him wearily. "But I'm not making it that easy for you. There's a choice, but you won't like it. I've made a deal with Granner. You can die now, or you can go back to Earth to the clinic." "The clinic," shrieked Roper. "You know what that means. I wouldn't be the same person. Maybe not even human." Tori steadied his eyes on his brother. "I'm not sure you ever were human. But you need treatment. They'll knock out your thymus, drug you and shock you and carve you till you'll never know yourself. You won't be an antisocial monster with the emotional stasis of a child. You won't be anything you've ever been. But you may be a man. And you'll stop hurting people, or they'll stop you for good. The choice is yours right now. So make up both our minds before I decide to shoot." Roper yielded with a grimace of distaste. "You win, Tori. You always did, sooner or later. I was quicker, but you were smarter. I guess Rose was the last of your toys I'll ever swipe. And it's back to kindergarten for Bart Roper." Tori relaxed, though he still did not lower his gun. "You'll be going back on the survey ship, Bart. That way, you'll have a long voyage in the brig to meditate on your sins. But on Earth, you'll have Rose. You're a married man there, with a wife and child. Rose still loves you, Bart. When you steal something, it stays stolen. I'm not going back, so you'll get Rose after all." Roper laughed coldly. "That's what I meant about your being smarter than I am. You always come out ahead." Tori's eyes followed a moving mirage to a notch high on the walls of the gully. The glitter of cold metal was not illusion. Tharelson held a gun on him, unwaveringly. "You can come out now," Tori said to her. "It's all over." Tharelson lowered her gun and walked unsteadily toward them. "Why didn't you shoot?" Roper stormed at her angrily. "You could have killed him before he pulled the trigger." Inside her faceplate, Tori could see her eyes dim with hot tears. "Yes, I could have," she said brokenly. "But maybe I've seen enough mirages to recognize one." Many Martian hours later, 3 people watched the survey ship blast off from Triton. Before the ship left, Granner had been taken aboard and removed from his spacesuit long enough for drugs to be administered and his legs set and splinted. Now, with pain-killing narcotics deadening him, the policeman was scarcely aware of the departing ship with his prisoner aboard, consigned bodily to Earth and its clinic for incurable criminals. Granner had relaxed into a dope daydream of a comfortable future on Earth as a plankton farmer, with nothing to do but read mini-film detective stories. Watching the ship vanish beyond a skyful of mirages, Tori tried vainly to conquer a feeling of depression. Loneliness swept over him, as if with the sudden termination of his obsession about Roper, his life had lost most of its meaning. It occurred to him suddenly that Tharelson must be feeling infinitely worse. With a quick glance toward Granner to make sure that the policeman was all right, Tori climbed slowly to the area in the high rocks where the girl had hidden herself. Like a doll in a spacesuit, Tharelson huddled together, staring upward as if toward some vanishing illusion. shared loneliness sometimes loses its sting. But Tharelson ignored Tori's presence, and he felt acutely embarrassed. "You'll be better off without him," Tori said, consoling her. "And life will be much simpler." "I know that," she replied sharply. "What else did you want?" Tori laughed. "Business, I guess. According to solar space law, we three are sole owners of Triton and its mineral rights, since we were on the spot and in possession when the survey ship arrived. Your people will have the transuranics they need. But the stuff won't work in the transmitter, so it'll have to go in the hard way. High freight charges will cut down the profits, so I don't think any of us will get rich. I'm sure that Grantor will sell his rights cheap, and as far as I'm concerned, I'd rather your people had the stuff at cost, so I'll sign over my rights to them for the 41,000 credits I've invested. Also, you can claim salvage rights on the transmitter of a third of the value, and I'm sure the inventor will be happy to have it back at that. I won't ask any part of the salvage claim. Money just weighs me down anyhow." "That's very generous of you," murmured Tharel Sr. "My people will be very grateful to you." "And you?" he asked. "Just how grateful will you be?" Her eyes blinked, then stared soberly through the faceplate of her helmet. "Ask that again. It's not part of the deal, of course. But you bragged that you could make Roper forget a girl back on Earth. I need some full-time forgetting, and I wondered if you'd like to try the same stunt for me." Tharelson studied him for a long moment before answering. "When we're out of these helmets," she said softly, "you can kiss me. Just once. For gratitude. Afterward, much later, we can think about the rest, and discuss it with dignity. If you're staying on Mars, why not look me up sometime?" "Why not?" asked Tori, grinning. Then without waiting for the kiss, he made his decision. "And I'm staying on Mars." End of Mirage for Planet X. By Stanley Mullen.